excited to be here. Thank you, the executives that put this together. I really wish I had the opportunity to have such a conference or such an education summit when I was in the shoes of some of the sophomores and the juniors. How enlightened I would be and how I would choose my path rightly and wouldn't go through some of the things that I went through. So I was given the topic. I know they're going to mount some slides on the thing for me. But I was given this topic, dream it, achieve it. It's a good topic. It's a great topic, but I feel like the topic is so depth that we have to dive deeply into it. And like I said, I'm so grateful for the executives that put this together. And my talk is mainly going to be for most of the young people. How many people believe this country is a land of opportunity? I am a strong believer of it. Like my husband said, I came from Ghana 11 years ago. Back in Ghana, I was an accountant. I was a second year in university in Ghana as an accounting student. And my dad is like, come here, because he was living here in 20 years. So my dad brought me, my brother, my mom, we all came. So when we came, I was like, should I continue my accounting path? Or do I go through another path? And unfortunately, fortunately, my dad is an HHA. So he didn't know much about it. So he was like, just do whatever you want. But I needed somebody to give me the guidance, somebody to tell me, okay, this is the path to take. But when you talk to every Ghanaian, most of the people that I talk to, you got to do nursing. For Ghanaian, your most highest achievement, you got to do nursing. So in my head, I was like, no, I'm an accountant. I just came. I want to continue my accounting. So my dad used to work with this white woman. And I told her my dilemma. So I told her, Loretta, I actually named my daughter after her. So I told her, Loretta, I was an accounting student in Ghana, and I really want to do an accounting because that's what I want. So she's like, why don't you apply to Macy's and start working there and see if you really like to be an accountant? Because accounting in Ghana might be different from an accounting in America. And that was the best advice I ever took. So I applied to Macy's. I got the job. I got a job there as a cashier. And I started working with these amazing people, different cashiers, supervisors. And the way the supervisors were treating us, the cashiers, that way put me off from accounting. So we started working. I worked there actually from 2008 to 2013. So I had a good amount of experience in the accounting field in terms of what the whole business sector is all about, because Macy's is huge in this country. So then I realized, okay, no, so I can't do an accountant. You have to be, unfortunately, we have an accent. We weren't born here. We all have an accent. And for you to work your way up in the accounting field, I'm not saying you can't get there. You can absolutely get there even if you have an accent. But you got to work your way up. And unfortunately, there are a lot of stumbling blocks. So I started school at the same time. I started school in Lehman, not knowing what I'm going to school for. So I went to school. I said, okay, maybe I'll continue my accounting. But everybody is also saying nursing. So maybe I'll go do nursing. I started school not knowing what I wanted to do. So the first year, that's why I said this talk is mostly for the young people. So the first year, I took very unnecessary classes because I didn't know what I'm doing. So I took history, I took English, I started taking all the classes. And the first 2 semesters went by. So then I met this amazing person that I feel like God brings people into our lives for a reason, because as soon as I graduated, he left the school. So I met this man. His name is Dr. Jeffrey. And he was a practicing physician, and all of a sudden he stopped practicing being a doctor and was advising the students. So when you go to his office, he has a stethoscope hang. And his white coat also hangs, but he's not practicing. All he is there is to advise us. So I went to him and I said, Dr. Jeffrey, I'm here for nursing, actually, because all Ghanaians that I've spoken to said nursing is the highest that I could go. So he was like, tell me your school account number. I told him. He opened my account, and he looked at my GPA. And he said, actually, you can go further than nursing. And I looked at him like, really? I'm from Ghana. He's like, so? You can actually go further than nursing. I'm not from New York, I'm from Georgia, Atlanta, so that doesn't count. So I said, well, I have an accent. It's like, so everybody in Lehman has an accent. So he said, well, your GPA is good. If you can continue that trend, these are the classes that you have to take. And since then, that's when my path towards science started. And I'll tell you, it wasn't an easy path. From business, not knowing anything about science, and then going through that route, it was difficult. It was extremely difficult. And unfortunately, the person that I talked to was also difficult because he gave me the difficult subjects to take. So that even became challenging. And there were many times during the road that I wanted to quit. But this man will tell me, you're not quitting. I will make sure you get into medical school, make sure you graduate before I move to Atlanta if I have to go to Atlanta. And that's what he did. So to the young ones, I'll talk about it on one of the slides, but find a mentor. Find a mentor who will guide you. Find a mentor who has the same interest and the same passion that you have. Find a mentor who is willing to do anything for you to achieve whatever that you want to achieve. And when you find that mentor, no matter what that mentor does, just make sure you follow it and you follow suit to it. And no matter the obstacles, remember somebody is sacrificing his life, his time, everything to mentor you to get to where you are. And I would say that I never let that man down. There was at one point that he was teaching me, there is this class exam that we have to take before you get into med school, and I was struggling with it. And he organized the class. It wasn't just for me, it was for everybody, but unfortunately I was the only person going. So I would go every Friday I would go, and it's just me. And the man will come and he would teach me. So he asked me a question and I didn't know, and he gave me the pinch of my life. A very bad pinch that I almost cried. And in my head, I was like, I'm not a kid. Why is this man treating me like a kid? I'm not going to come anymore. But I went home and I thought about it and I told myself, what does he have to lose? He's already a doctor. He doesn't have anything to lose. He's the one trying to help you. If you don't want to go, it's your own problem. And I packed my books, and the next Friday I was there. And I took the exam the following month. I passed. He showed me what the classes to take, what schools to apply to. He's like, you are an immigrant, you are a minority, you have to apply to these schools. And I followed suit, and one of the top schools that he chose is the school that I got in. Whatever connections that he did, I have no idea, but I know I got into one of the schools that he chose. So just find a mentor, find somebody who is willing to help you along the way to achieve what you want to achieve. But let's go through the slides that I have. So the topic was find your passion and how the price and the success of that passion. So we talked about finding a passion. So for you to be successful, you have to find a passion, which means you have to find a goal. If you don't find a goal, there is no price to pay and there is no success because you don't even know what you want. So you find your goal first, you find what you want to achieve, and then you find out what are the prices that I have to pay to make that goals. So I'll tell you some of the prices that I had to pay to reach where I am right now. I feel like this cuts across in everything, no matter the field that you are in, business, medicine. And I'll tell you, nursing is a noble profession. But if you can go above that, go for it. If you can be a medical doctor, go for it. I will show you another slide on the thing that will ginger most of the young people to choose medicine because it's very sad. I look at that slide and it's the most documented, the most newest document that we have right now. And to look at that and look at the numbers, to me, it was very sad. So some of the prices that you pay to get to where you are. The first price is commitment. There is no success without commitment. If you're not going to commit to it, you're not going to succeed in it. There is no shortcuts and there is no easy way out. There is no comfort zones in success. If you want to be successful, you have to be committed and you have to find, like I said, there is no comfort zone in success. So if you really, really want to be successful, you got to go above and beyond your limits. You got to do some of the extraordinary things people fear to do. That is what you have to do. So the first thing is commitment, and you have to stay committed to it. So the second price that you have to pay for success is, the next slide, it's hard work. So there is a difference between work and there is a difference between hard work. We all work. I'm not talking about job. I'm talking about even when we use job as an example. Sometimes when we go to work, sometimes you can say, today I actually worked. And today I worked. So there is a difference between work and there is a difference between hard work. So if you really, really want to succeed in whatever that you want to do, you can't just work. It has to be hard work. Hard work means pushing above your limit, going above and beyond what you can do. And like I said, no easy way out, no shortcuts. You have to push above your ability zone. So the third thing that you have to do is to sacrifice. Oh boy, that sacrifice. So you sacrifice your time, you sacrifice your relationships, and my husband can attest to it. I sacrificed my relationship to get where I am today. So there are times that you would love to be part of the family. There are occasions that you miss that family members will look at you and be like, are you the only person in school? I also have children in school. Like, why are you missing every wedding of the family? Why are you missing every funeral? All the most important thing. But unfortunately, sometimes you just have to cut those things. You just have to cut time and just make sure that you are sacrificing some of the time for the things that you want to achieve in life. Especially, we all think differently. I feel like funerals are important, but unfortunately the person is gone, right? Unfortunately the person is gone. So if I have the time to come for the 1 week ceremony, I feel like that should be enough. If I'm not able to come to the 1 week ceremony and I'm able to come to the funeral ceremony, that should be enough, but I can't do the two. So you have to make a choice and a decision between which one you want to do. You can't sacrifice all your time for things that will not lead you to where you want to go. You have to make time for you, and the time that you're making for you is the time that is the things that you have to do to take you to where you want to go. So the relationship. So some of us are married. Some of us got married when we were in school. And like I said, my husband can attest to it. I got married when I was in first year of medical school. But my husband was in here. He was in Ghana. He came when I was second year. And second year is the most toughest year in medical school because that's when you start writing your boards. And you don't know how to study for it. So it becomes very tough. And barely did he see me. I'm not saying that I'm proud of it. But I'm saying that sometimes you have to sacrifice some of the most valuable relationships that you have to achieve what you want to achieve in life. And at the end, you will look back and say, now I can give back to the relationship that I couldn't sacrifice the time for, or I couldn't do the best that I wanted to do for it. So I'll leave my house at 7 a.m. and come back at midnight. When I'm going, he's getting ready to go to work. When I come back, he's sleeping. The next morning, it will be the same vicious cycle. So I'm not proud of it, but that was the sacrifice that I had to pay to get to where I am today. So it goes for everybody. Thankfully, our mothers understand it. My mom understood it to the point that if I don't call her within a week, she's okay with it because she knows I'm studying. So if that is the price that you have to pay, if that's the sacrifice that you have to pay, just have a good conversation with the people that you sacrifice it. Your family, your husbands, your wife, your children. Just have a good conversation with them and tell them this is it. It's just going to be temporary, but this is what it's going to be. So that's the key thing, sacrifice. And the last thing that I want to talk about is, continuous education. There is no way you can be successful if you don't educate yourself. Things are changing day in and day out. Unfortunately, if you meet a doctor that doesn't read, you will die. Which means everything changes. The way we treat diabetes now is different from the way diabetes was treated last year. And the same way we treated heart attack now is different from how we treated heart attack in 4 months. So if you meet a doctor that does not keep current on the updated treatment, unfortunately, you're going to pass. So it goes for every profession. The more you read, the more you embetter yourself. So continuous education, the ability to learn, the zeal to learn, to find mentors and learn from them. That's what you need to succeed. And then we will dive into the health. I want to leave most of my time for questions. So just a quick dive into the healthcare sector job. So we all have plenty plenty of opportunity in the health sectors. You can be a doctor, you can be a pharmacist, you can be a nurse, you can be a PCA. There are plenty of job opportunities there. I'm just a little biased because I'm a doctor, so I'm just shooting that everybody be a doctor. And I'll tell you the reason why. So, if we look at the third line, where it says African American, right? Okay. So, I'm just showing, this slide is showing how many people apply to medical school and how many people get in. So every year, it's yearly, right? So this is 2018-2019 academic year. The whole United States, not New York, the whole United States. Only 4,430 African and African American applied to medical school. Only 4,000. And only 1,500 got in. So, in the entire 2018-2019, we will have only 1,500 doctors that are black. It's not just in New York. When I saw this slide, I was like, this is not true. Because I know how the Ghanaians and the black people feel when they come to the hospital and they see people like them. I saw a Ghanaian in the ED, and all the doctors were saying, oh, we got to intubate him because he's, like mentally he wasn't there. And I walked in and I said that to say, and all of a sudden this man jumped. And I told the doctors, he's not sick. He just missed his dialysis. You were going to do a procedure in a man that did not even need it. Just because you guys don't understand his language, so you think he is sick. He is not sick. And he was looking at me, he was like, oh, call my wife. Like, he was so excited to see somebody who was like him. And fortunately, the person was also a Ghanaian. So if the whole US, only 1,500 people are applying as doctors, that's sad. That is very sad. And if you look at the white people, it's 25,000 people. It's 25,000 people, and 11,000 of them get in. But the good thing is, we even have a higher advantage of getting in than them. I'll show you in the next slide. Can we go to the next slide? Okay. So, if we look at the black people, we see 81%. These are the people that get into medical school. If you look at the black people, first of all, let's look on top. We see MCAT and we see GPA. So the MCAT is the exam, the entrance exam that you have to take to go into medical school. And GPA is the number that you have to get when you do your undergrad to get into medical school. So if you take a white person that have 27 to 29 score in MCAT, and that's where I was when I took it in 2013. So I got 27, so I was that range, 27 to 29. If you look at a white person and if you look at a black person that got that number has 81% chance of getting into medical school. But the white person that got number has only 33% chance. So if you take 10 black people that got that, 8 of them will get in. Only 3 of the white people will get in. So why are we not applying? Is it because we are nervous or because everybody is telling us nursing is the only way out? I'm just going to leave it here. I'm going to leave it here. If you have any questions, but this is the most dying thing. We need doctors, and we need black doctors. Nursing is good, pharmacy is good, but we need black doctors. Yes. Questions?
Thank you very much, Dr. Cecilia.
Yeah. So if you have any questions.
Yeah, I think there's already one question. Yeah, do you have any questions before I ask what I have here?
What would you recommend to someone in their undergrad who does not have a college degree yet to major in? What would you recommend they major in?
So everybody thinks if you want to go into medical school, you have to major in science. You don't. Most of the people that I graduated in medical school from had English. Somebody even had music. So the only thing you have to do is major in the most easiest major, right? But do the science classes that are required for medical school, because remember, your GPA also counts, right? So you can major in speech and pathology or in music, get your GPA to 3.9, and take all the science classes that are needed for medical school. Just make sure the science GPA is also there, like 3.6. You are black, you are minority. GPA of 3.5, you will get into med school. Don't major in biochemistry like I did. Major in something easy, but just make sure you do well in your sciences. That's all.
Amazing. Yeah. I like the questions. Yeah.
Okay, so my question is, what if like you have the passion to be a nurse, but then you also want to become a doctor, so you take the part as you become a nurse first, and then whilst like working, you could take the other classes.
That's great. That's another path that you can go. But the only caveat to that is, usually when you start working, you start making the money. It's really tough to really leave and say you want to go back to school, unless you don't really, really like what you are doing. If you have the passion to do nursing and you're already practicing as a nurse, it's going to be difficult for you to leave nursing and go back to school, back to medical school. When you think about it, medical school is going to be another 4 years. Residency included, it's going to be 8 years for you. So if you look at nursing, I'm making $120,000 a year. Why should I leave and go back to medical school and have a lot of debt? Like, you think about it, it's going to be difficult. So you can do the nursing as your bachelor's, but I wouldn't advise you work and then go back to school. Just follow me through.
Yep. I think I agree. Exactly the reason why I'm not a doctor. Well, future doctor in book, but then not a medical doctor. Because about 5 years more to degree.
So the thing is, like my entire 11 years in the country, I've been schooling. But that's fine. If that's the price you have to pay to be a doctor, that's okay. It's worth it. Like, to be able to help fellow Ghanaians and fellow blacks in the emergency room, I feel like the 11 years was worth it.
Yeah, it is. Now, there's a question here for you. What is the one thing that you did consistently that helped you achieve success?
Oh, that's a tough one. So I was dedicated. And I'll tell you, some of our Ghanaian family members, they're not good. They will tell you things that would kind of bring you down. And unfortunately, I had an auntie like that told me even her children that were born here couldn't go to medical school. And that, to me, that was great. That was the best thing I've ever had. So when she told me there is no way you can do it because even my children that were born here tried and they couldn't get in, I was like, oh no, I'll prove this woman wrong. So that made me so dedicated to the point that if I don't get the score that I want on the exam, I start to freak out. So to answer your question, just being dedicated and knowing that this is the goal. It's right there. And I'm going towards it, and nothing will stop me until I go towards it. And to me, it was that thing that my auntie told me that kind of pushed me towards that I'm going for it no matter what. So just dedicate.
Beautiful, beautiful. Any more questions? Wow.
So I have a series of questions, just 3 in short. So first and foremost, I know taking on such a purpose to go on a rigorous path to becoming a doctor was hard since it's challenging along the way. So if there's anything that you know today that you wish you knew before you took on the journey, what do you wish it would be?
I wish somebody would have told me it's going to be a lot of debt. So I knew medical school was expensive. I knew I was going to finish school in debt, but I didn't know it was going to be this bad. It's really bad. I look at my account and I start to freak out. But the thing that I hear from my attendants is that if you're not an extravagant person, 5 years you can pay off. You can pay that debt off. And that gives me hope. But to answer your question, I wish I had a summit like this to be able to ask the questions that you guys are asking. That somebody can tell me that, okay, yes, medical school will be this, and I would think about it. Do I really want to go into it? I had no thought because other than Dr. Jeffrey, I had nobody else to really kind of steer me. So I didn't have most of the questions that I had it, but I had nobody to answer those questions. So I wish I had like something like this that would kind of answer some of the questions.
Yeah, so my next question was in relation to that. In relation to building up the debt and the cost that comes along the way, how do you find other means to support yourself since you're studying full-time?
Right. So student loans, student loans, student loans. Everybody has student loans. Don't worry about it. Yeah, don't worry about it. Take as much as you want. My husband was working, but I knew I wasn't going to be able to support him. So I even told my school people, because we were living in a student apartment. I told them, in order not to burden my husband, put our rent into my tuition, add my rent into my tuition, because I know I'm not going to be able to support him, and everything is going to be on him, and that's not fair. Or I don't want to put too much stress on it. So they added even my rent onto my school fees, my tuition, to make it even higher. So don't worry about it. The government got your back. They'll pay your student loans. It's just that when you finish, just be diligent and pay back. But take as much as you want, extra, so that you have a comfortable life. It's stressful already. They're not going to stress you. It's just by the time you finish, you have more loans and you can pay them.
Okay. Lastly, there are current MD programs that grant you the opportunity to gain an MBA along the way of getting an MD, but there are also the pathways that prospective doctors have taken after they achieved having the MD. Then later on in their career, they went on to pursue the MBA to receive higher pay and to also go into their business endeavors. So would you advise or suggest doing it as a dual degree program to get it out the way, or
Good
rather
question.
get one and then continue to the other afterward and have the means to do so?
This is a very good question. So the thing is, it's MD, MBA.
Yes.
Are you interested in business administration? That's the one question that you have to ask yourself. Me, that I was a business student, I was like, do I really want to also go back into an administrative job? Because you being an MD, MBA means you're just going to be on the administrative side of the hospital, right? You're not really a practicing physician. So remember, that degree also comes with tuition. So if you're not really going to use that degree, if you're not interested in business administration, then there is no point in carrying more student loans if you're not going to use that degree, right? So you ask yourself if you want it. If you want it, then there is dual degrees. Like in my school, the regular MD program was 4 years. I knew some of my classmates that intertwined the MBA part in it, and they still graduated in 4 years. They didn't even do extra year. They still ended up graduating in 4 years. So yes, you can do it, but you have to know yourself that I really want to be on the business side. If you're not sure yet, then don't do it. You can finish, and once you want to do it, if you have the MD degree, if you apply to most of the things, they don't even ask you a question. You just get accepted. And degrees that will take a year usually take 6 months for somebody with an MD degree. So if you're not sure, don't do it. Wait. But if you are sure, then do a dual degree with it.
Realistically speaking, what are the pros and the cons of being a doctor?
Oh, boy. Which one should we tackle first? The cons, the pros. Let's go for the pros first. So it's a very fulfilling job, and it humbles you a lot. For me, that works in the emergency room, that I get the opportunity to see firsthand some of the acuity of the stuff that comes in. You look at it, and it just humbles you, and you just know you were in a noble profession, especially if somebody comes in. I'll give you an example. Last week, we had a code. So a code means somebody is dying. We had a code, and this lady was dying, and unfortunately, we have to do a CPR, and she's a burn lady. So once we were doing the CPR, her skin was peeling off. And then in my head, I was like, oh God, let this lady survive. Let this lady survive. Unfortunately, she did not. But the reason why I brought this up is that had she survived, right, it would have been the most fulfilling thing ever. When I finished, my white coat was all red of her blood. So how I wish she would have survived. It would have been the most fulfilling thing. So to me, that's the con part. It's so fulfilling. Somebody's so sick, and all of a sudden, the next day you go, and for some reason, some intervention on one or two things you typed into the computer, the person is now up and walking. And you just look at it and like, oh my God, I know I got into the right job. Like, I'm saving lives. And that's to me, the most fulfilling thing. The con side to it is you got to sacrifice everything to do those things. Like, I feel sorry for my husband and my kid. Sometimes 3 days and my 2-year-old hasn't even seen me. Because I'm going, she's sleeping, the next morning I come. It's just back and forth. So you're sacrificing basically everything that is